What's up, squad? This is Brandon from the Bantu Sun. Thank you so much for joining me today. So, I just got through looking at an article about Prime Minister Meloni wanting to out the Russians in Libya. Now, this has really caught my attention because, one, Africa, people don't understand. Africa, we call Africa the continent because Africa is the geostrategic center of the world. Africa has unfettered access by land or sea to every other continent in the world. So when people talk about geostrategy, here you have Africa in the center, the second largest continent, taking up all this space, and it's relatively fragmented, which allows opportunity. Hence, the scramble for Africa in the 19th centuries. So, as we talked about in other videos, as you see Frank's influence wane, um, that's why Africa is so important, is because other people or other powers are going to try to use Africa as a lily pad, a way to project their power farther from their home base and closer to their potential enemy base or allied bases. Because Africa's in the center, so you're always moving close to somewhere within the continent. So when Libya fell, and obviously the reason why things are going crazy with Libya, right, is because Gaddafi's fought for power. The country went into chaos for obvious reasons. That's what happened when you brutally overthrow a government. And the government that was elected, it seems as though a lot of people didn't trust it, except one country, right? And this is the kicker, right? So when this new country, when the government took over, now the government of national unity took over. And the national unity, they're going to be based in the western portion of the country and in Tripoli. And then you have their adversaries, which is going to be based in Tobruk in the eastern half of the country. Now, what happened was, I believe, so you have this guy, Khalifa Haftar. So the government of national unity in charge. And I'm doing a lot of guesstimating because obviously I'm not in the room when this stuff happened. And those that know not saying, and those that say don't know. I don't know. I wasn't there, but it appears what happened, right? Because this guy, Marshal Khalifa Haftar, he is a dual Libyan American citizen who is a guy fell out of favor with Gaddafi, and I believe he's the guy that the West wanted to take over or put into Gaddafi's place, but it was never strong enough, and there was never enough energy to put him in place. And then when Gaddafi was overthrown, it seems as though he was pushed out there, but he was running too slow, and they got outflanked, more or less. Or they thought they could just put him in, and he'll be strong enough to take over. Nevertheless, he wasn't able to take Tripoli. He wasn't able to take over. And this is where I come back, except for one country really supported the country in Tripoli, and that was Turkey. Now, also you have Italy. And the reason why this is very interesting is because this dude, Marshal Haftar, he appears to be aligned with the West. As I said, he's a dual U.S. Libyan citizen. He's lived in the U.S. He's very close relationship with the powers to be in America. And it seems as though when they put him over there, he was going to be their guy. And when he tried to take Tripoli, and the Turks stepped in and prevented that from happening, the America was kind of saying, you know what? So what? We got Gaddafi's out of power. We thought you were strong enough, and now you're not. You sure you wasn't strong enough, or you would need more help. But to give you more help, we kind of got to go against Turkey, and we got some things going on in Syria. We really don't want to press Turkey that hard. And it's like the juice is no longer worth the squeeze. And this gentleman, Marshal Haftar, it seems as though his administration started to reach out to the Russians. So this is why it's very interesting, right? Because in this time, early 2023, Italy had already made a $9 billion business deal through ENI to secure gas and energy resources from Libya. So this is why PM Meloni is really big on the Tripoli government. And on top of that, you have Turkey, and whenever you have Turkey, you're gonna have Qatar. Turkey and Qatar, they're thick as thieves on everything. So apparently, the countries that support this government of national unity or the Tripoli government is going to be Turkey, Qatar, Italy, Algeria, and for some reason Pakistan. And I think the Pakistan portion is because Pakistan is really close with Qatar. If we remember a lot of that, you saw Qatar fingerprints everywhere with the whole Taliban takeover of Afghanistan. You saw the Taliban that was living in Pakistan. So Qatar is doing a lot of things in the foreign policy world way beyond its small, its diminutive geographic scope. It's politically very influential. And they buddied up with some pretty big countries in Pakistan and in Turkey. So Turkey came in, master of the Bayraktar drones. They came in, they pushed Haftar out of Tripoli. It was a complete calamity, complete failure. So now he's like just there in eastern Libya, right? And it was like, no, they're just struggling to survive. And he's getting older, he has failing health. It's looking like his son, supposedly, whose name is ironically Saddam Haftar. So it looks like his son may be one of his successors if his health continues to deteriorate. I believe he's in his late 70s, maybe early 80s. But they're kind of like stranded out there. They were brought over there to do a job. They didn't got all this infrastructure and hoopla and these backers to do the job. They failed at the job, but they really don't have anything else to do because what are you going to do with this army now, Because obviously if they submit, they can become brought up on charges in prison. Worst things can happen. So now they're kind of in a corner right now. It's all or nothing, I think, for that side of the government. Now this is where Italy comes in, because Italy says, you know what, we really got to get rid of these guys, and they use the buzzword Russia, right? Because supposedly when Haftar was out there on the outs, they reached out to Russia, and Russia did some things, Wagner Group, etc. And he wasn't really getting the support from the Americans maybe that he thought he deserved or thought he was going to get. And this is how, ironically, you end up with Russia and France on the same side, both of them supporting this Haftar regime. As I said, Italy is going to support Tripoli regime because they want those concessions for ENI. And of course, Turkey is already getting concessions as well to explore the seabed with Libya as well. You see where I say all governments are really oligarchs, It's interest groups here, and these interest groups represent the business interests of the countries, Morality is seen nowhere. He's in a different building. This is about people pursuing their interests up there. The people that put them in charge. These are going to be well-to-do oligarchs of various countries, making sure they get their slice of the pie. And this is what leadership of countries are supposed to do. This is why they exist. So I think Italy, Meloni is acting this way because don't forget, Meloni's real cozy with Elon Musk, right? And who's in Trump's ear all the time, right? So I think you're going to see this alliance come out. You're going to have these hawks. You're going to have people like Meloni. I even saw her, and she got a great video out there when she talks bad about the French and the horrible job they done in Africa. You can see that she's kind of trying to take that Mediterranean, that southern post of the Mediterranean, that southern European post away from France and make Italy the gateway to Africa, because whatever Europeans say about Africa, many not flattering, Europe is geographically flanked by Africa in the most nicest terms, right? And Africa is massive, and it's a large population with a lot of resources. All these things that Europe are lacking. Europe is and conversely, Europe have things that Africa needs. Like Europe's very capital rich, technologically rich, very developed. But Africa has energy, resources on a significant scale, right? And you got countries the size of regions in Europe. And you have more above that is demography, people to sell your stuff to supplement your diminishing population. So these are all things that Europe would need from Africa. So what they say, the land of the blind, he with one eye is king. So if Italy can build themselves as the bridge between Europe and Africa, that would make them a very, very critical player. So it's just interesting to me because Meloni, now who knows if Haftar is really deep in bed with Russians or not. Of course, they've had some relationships and the Russians have proved instrumental. But I think since Syria failed, I say the Russians were done. They're definitely done in Africa. So I say they were done in the Mediterranean, but they're definitely done in Africa. If they can't protect Syria, I don't know how you're going to protect across the Mediterranean in Africa. You know, it's to me right now it's completely symbolic. It's completely symbolic. I don't think Russia has the sustenance to project thoroughly in Africa. It may get some business deals here and there, but they're not really going to be a force. So it's just a matter of time before they're squeezed out. But I think Italy's trying to rush that, and as well, not intentionally as well, they're trying to make sure that Haftar, Marshal Haftar in the eastern country, don't pull a Hail Mary, somehow take over the country and kick them out of the energy deal and give concessions to supporters that do back him. And as I said, he's kind of stuck there, and it looks like his backers are countries like Russia, France, Saudi Arabia, UAE. These appear to be the people in power, and this is really important because this is right next door to Sudan, and Hemeti, the leader of the RSF that operate out of the western regions of the country, the darker regions of the country, and who has besieged Sudan but has been unable to fully take over the country. They do a lot of trade because Libya and Sudan are next door to each other. So when you look at this, it's a lot of moving pieces, but this is so critical because this is going to determine who is going to rule Africa. I don't want to say who's going to rule Africa, but it's definitely going to say who's going to have the head starts on major influence in the northeastern portion, the northern or the Maghreb region of the continent. So we'll continue to watch it, but it was just very interesting that PM Meloni was quick to say, especially Russia coming power, we got to stop these guys in Libya. We got to stop the Russians expanding. That's another way of saying we have to make sure that Marshal Haftar forces doesn't take over Libya and mess up our good energy deal we got going on with Tripoli. So I'd love to hear your thoughts. Comment below. Like, share, subscribe if you enjoy the content. Until next time, take care. Bantu up.